Tamadakyapi, I'm Jennifer Irving.
And I'm Tashina Banks-Rama. Welcome back to Stories of Lakota Elders, a podcast featuring the life, leadership, and teachings of Cecelia Fire Thunder.
In each episode, Cecelia shares stories from her remarkable life as a Lakota woman, a healer, an organizer, and a leader whose work has shaped our communities for decades.
In this episode, we revisit one of the most significant moments in her journey, becoming the first woman ever elected president of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. Cecilia's campaign and her leadership set a new standard for what is possible for Lakota women in political spaces.
To help us explore the broader role Native people play in tribal, state, and national politics, we're joined by a special co-host, South Dakota District 27 Representative Peri Pourier.
And the timing of this conversation makes it even more interesting. When we recorded with Peri, she was serving as a member of the South Dakota Democratic Party. Just a few weeks after we wrapped, she announced she was switching to the Republican Party.
When you listen closely, you can actually hear early hints, especially when Peri talks about not wanting to sit near her Democratic colleagues on the House floor and asking the Speaker to move her seat. It adds a thoughtful, unexpected layer to this discussion about political identity and representation.
At the center of this episode is Cecilia's story, her courage, her clarity, and her willingness to step into leadership in a way no Lakota woman had before.
So settle in as we learn from Cecelia Fire Thunder and reflect on the evolving landscape of Native leadership with Representative Pourier alongside us.
Let's begin.
Peri serves as a member of the South Dakota House of Representatives from District 27. She's a fierce advocate for Native youth, education, and sovereignty, and we are thrilled to have her here with us today. Pri, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Well, thank you so much, Wópila, for allowing me to have the honor to sit with you and be a part of this podcast. I just think these are so important conversations, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of the treasure that you have that you're willing to pass down. And I'm so happy and glad that we're recording this, that we're capturing it. There's so much wisdom that I always get afraid sometimes that we're going to lose. So thank you for having me.
Cecelia Fire Thunder made history as the first woman elected tribal president of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. But her legacy began long before and has only continued since through Cecilia's advocacy work in health, education, and Native women's empowerment.
Let's begin with the early years. Cecelia, when did you first feel called to advocate for others and use your voice to help?
When I was in the third grade at Red Cloud Indian School. My sisters and my family always say I was always advocating and looking out for people, I think it was built in. And even my years going to school here from first grade to 10th grade, I was always helping in some manner, shape, or form, and just looking out for people. And I think it was built into me to be just look out for people and one-on-one, even a little girl's crying, oh, it's okay, come here, hug her,
Yeah.
And so sometimes I really feel that was something that it was part of who I am. And maybe back to what Peri said is that we bring all of those gifts of the ancestors, that we carry something from the past into us for the future. So I always feel like I've always looked out for each other, other people, always looking out for other people. And then that just kind of grew and grew. And my mother made sure we all registered to vote. When we turned 18, she made us go register to vote. Chaje o Ishbekiapi, vote. Your dad, your uncle, and all the men in our family went to fight the enemy in Germany and Korea, wherever they went, so you could vote. Just simple as that.
Yeah.
The power to vote. So, of course, we did it, and I didn't realize how powerful that vote could be until I got older. of putting people in office that are going to advocate for you, and especially where decisions are made for money. But I like to just stop running. So I started really fine tuning my advocacy in Los Angeles. Again, it was natural for me to help others and to start a clinic in Compton, California. And then the other thing is that people in higher office have how can I say this? They can help you secure funding, or they can help you secure resources for a project you're working on. So I learned it from square one for healthcare, knowing the mayor of LA, knowing the city council, people of LA, just learning. And then, so here again, this is where my awareness of the political system came into play, and how important understanding the political system. It could be local, a city, it could be the county, whatever region. And so then I started to educate myself on how those processes work, and then asking people. And then, so the most important thing I want to share with you is, as a young woman, I was always curious. So I started to align myself and get to know women of color. So I hung out with Black women, Hispanic women, all the different women in LA, because their journey in the political system was way more advanced than I ever knew. And then they taught me, and how I learned was watching them to be advocates at that other level. And I'll just conclude by saying that Senator Diane Watson, who was in the United States Senate, she was a Congresswoman. Diane Watson was once a California state senator. And then Maxine Waters, who's currently in Congress, was once a member of the California state legislature. And they were both from the LA area, and they were two mentors that I had. I watched them. What is a mentor? Somebody you say, look at that, how they do that. Even how you dress, how you conduct yourself. They were my mentors. And then later on, when Congress, they both made it to Congress. So can I just say this? I think the advocacy using the political system was something I learned well. And then using that knowledge, I came home and started organizing. And so just Peri and I were just talking earlier. It takes a lot of time, energy, and resources to organize to get people to the polls, and to not only get them to the polls, but to teach and to get them to understand the importance of their vote. Chaje o ishpekyapi. That's you drop your name. That's what we say, a vote. Your one vote could make a difference. Not just putting somebody in office, but maybe a piece of legislation or something that's going to benefit you. So I can honestly say today, our Indian communities are not as sophisticated as they should be in understanding the power of the vote. Because if we truly understood it, we would get people in there who are going to stand up and advocate for us. And I'll conclude by saying that the last members of Congress who are strong advocates were Senator George McGovern, Senator Tom Daschle, and Senator Tim Johnson were the last strong advocates for Indians, our issues, and our funding. And they were Democrats. The other thing is, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican, you're supposed to look out for the welfare of your community and your people. Your healthcare, education, water, roads, it doesn't matter. So you're senator or congressman, whether you're in the House, Senate, or state legislature, your job is to make sure your community has a good road, your community has good water. That's your job. And so, unfortunately, and I'll let Peri talk about this some more, political parties' boundaries are really bad now. It's not about that. It's about being Republican or Democrat. And that has changed dramatically in terms of, who's up there representing us. It's not about, it should never be about party. It should be about looking out for the best interests of your constituents, whether you live on an Indian reservation or Rapid City or Bennett County, whether you're a farmer, rancher, or whatever your constituents' needs should be priority, whether you're Republican or Democrat.
Were there leaders in your life that had impact on you before you understood titles and positions of power and all of that? Maybe talk about what leadership meant to you before you understood it in those contexts or those frameworks of Congress and government and all of that. Kind of peeling that part away and thinking about the power and influence in community and cultural leadership.
Wow. That's a great question. I look back and just growing up listening to the older men, grandpas, and just listening to them and watching their behavior, how they conduct themselves, and how they talked. And I always remember, Hina, you only kapis. They always spoke in a respectful manner to the people. They never talked down to people. They were never critical. You only and then built into that talk was just continuing words of encouragement. And those words of encouragement was that they understood we were in a dire straits. I mean, we were living on a reservation. There was no jobs. There was no income. They put us in this, within the boundaries. They were encouraging us, even though we didn't have a whole lot. But then I need to change it a little bit. So I used to listen to them and watch them, how they conducted themselves. But always, you only have copy. They always talked in a respectful manner, in a good way.
Well, should we switch gears a little
Sure.
bit and start talking about when you became first elected tribal president, female tribal president? Who wants to hop in?
Or maybe just tell us, what was the campaign
Well,
like?
let's just start at the beginning.
Okay.
I started working for Tim Johnson's reelection. So we had an office in Kyle. Okay, so that was his second term. So they hired me to help organize the Democrats and that side of the res because Pioneer just so big. So we had an office in Kyle, and then in the meantime, I got deaf. I lost my hearing, and so but thank God the Democratic Party had good insurance. So. So anyway, I was deaf. In the meantime, I was looking for a solution to my deafness, and my little sister recommended I get a cochlear implant, and so she was helping me find a location. Interesting enough, I ran that campaign deaf until I had to go to Iowa to have the surgery. And it was really interesting that I was still able to talk. I just kind of feel the vibration of my throat.
Wow.
And I was able to do kitty radio shows. And I was taken out in the community. And then we had a lot of volunteers came at that time. A lot of Democrats came from D.C., hit the ground running, did voter registration, all kinds of good stuff. And then on election day, that was 2 days before election day, my surgery was scheduled. So I had to fly to Iowa. Anyway, in the meantime, everything was set. So I came out of surgery and I found out Tim won. November 8th, Tim Johnson won. Okay. And so I looked back, and then so while I was laying in that hospital bed after I had my surgery, I said, I'm going to run for tribal president. I just made it right there. And the only reason I wanted to run for tribal president was I knew I could do a good job, but I wanted to change the paradigm that us Lakota women can do this. I wanted to create this place for Indian women that we can move up into all of these levels of leadership. Not just, and so for years, Lakota leadership was around Wichachas, even at the community level, we had all these, Tiosh Baez and all this stuff. So I grew up with all that, but it never occurred to me to not make a decision to run for president. So when I decided to run for president, but I also knew it was going to be an uphill battle. So even women will work against you because they're so colonized or beat down. They don't think a woman's capable. You know, I have to be honest. That's an honest statement. Sometimes we're our own worst enemies. Our gender, our women's gender. We don't. We should be supporting each other, but yet we just pull each other down because it's not me, her fears. Does that make sense? So a lot of women don't support women because they're whatever.
Here, Cecelia speaks candidly, bringing forward the reality that sometimes women can be the toughest critics of other women in leadership.
And it invites a little self reflection for all of us about how we show up for other women and how our words can either close doors or open them.
Even so, she stays hopeful and keeps encouraging women to step forward and run for office.
Her message is honest and reassuring, a reminder to support one another and not let criticism silence your voice. Let's listen.
But let me just say this. So I also knew that before I actually came forward, I needed permission. And the only permission I needed was from the Spirit. So, like, she helped me. So I went on a vision quest. I went up on the hill for 2 days and 2 nights for no other reason was to ask the Spirit for permission. We when she told honey, like, no woman ever did this. So I just need you to tell me it's okay. Now, if you tell me it's not, that's okay too. And so I prayed and 2 days and 2 nights, and a ceremony. And they said, "You oyaki, you can oyaki ash." That's the key word, ash. They're going to give you a hard time. That techia ni chuakte. But we'll be here. You come to us. Unipakitakte. Will come to us as often as you need so we can wipe it and take away all that they say or do to you. And so that was my, so when the Spirit said I could, then I stepped forward to put my application in to run for president with the help of the Spirit. And then the help of some of the unchis that Kaka said. And then my greatest helper was the Wichachala honey lemakaka money. There was a grandfather whose helpers were coyotes. So he told me in ceremony, no, you're not alone. So when you're having a really hard time, look around you, and if you see a coyote, that's us looking after you. So the coyotes are still looking after me. I still see them. I say, hey, no, I don't want to do any more. Please go away. And so that was the reason I wanted to do it was change the paradigm that women on a Pine Ridge Reservation, Lakota women are smart, capable, and able to work to become the president, to represent the people and look out after their needs, that we're able and capable.
That's just so beautiful. I just gonna ask you how you coped with being isolated. But I guess we know because sometimes it's hard, and I know you had a lot of challenges with people. When you get in, like, the campaign is hard, but when you get in the office, and that's even to govern is even more hard. So is that was your continual source of strength?
Prayer. So because the Spirit helps me, I depended on them. I depended on the relatives from the other side. They're the ones who were there to help me. So I also knew it was going to be bad. It could be challenging. First woman. And they hated me because I could talk English so good. I could explain things. I could read legislation. I should write a book about some of the closed door conversations that some of those council people had with me. Oh my gosh, Yeah. But at the same time, there was a real, I can't say all of them. A lot of them did support me, especially the Lakota speakers. Yeah, they encouraged me, you know. And then one of them said, "Oh, you scare me." I said, "God, Zoshke, you know, you ate my taco." He said, "Lila Niksape, you know so much, you know." But anyway, so I for those for people who are listening, I just think that not everyone can do this. It's a calling, and everyone has a calling, and to pay attention to it, and to do it. But most importantly, it's not any like Peri. Every time you're in elected office, it's not a gold road. It's full of ruts. It's full of danger signs. So being a political leader, an elected leader, one has to have perseverance, right? One has to have some inner strengths because it's a very, very rocky road. But if you believe in what you're doing, you're going to be able to transcend all those roadblocks and keep doing the best you can, you know, and accomplish something. You're not going to accomplish everything you set out to do, but you're going to accomplish some things, and that's the key. So it's not being a politician or being an elected official, especially in this time. It's really, you know, with what's going on around the world. It's a very, I don't know how can I describe this. It's a very challenging place to be an elected official in this time of day. So anyway, enough of that. So being a tribal elected official was my calling. And what I did was open a door for other women to run for higher office, whether it's state legislature, county commissioners, city council, school boards, you know,
Yeah.
and we belong. And so ladies who are listening, you belong there. We belong at those tables where decisions are made because it impacts your family, your children, your everything. So we belong at the table. And so we're at the table now. More and more, I see more women in elected positions at all different levels. And so this is where it belongs. So that's the greatest paradigm shift in America. For women, I don't care, Black women, white women, Hispanic women, different women. I watch the news and I see women of color in different places of elected officials, and I pray for them because it's a tough job.
Yeah.
And so finally, I wanted to change the paradigm. I wanted the women on the Pine Ridge Reservation to believe that, yeah, we belong here
Yeah. Yeah.
and that we're capable of helping our people with our decisions. They're going to make life better for us. That's it. Yeah.
You know how they talk about the glass ceiling?
Mm-hmm.
But Cecelia broke through the buckskin for us.
Oh, yeah.
The buckskin flats, cheap
Yeah.
flats.
I can't remember who told me that. You know, they talk, glass ceiling, Washita wins, glass ceiling. Hey, Cecelia broke through the buckskin ceiling. But then in retrospect, I said the first person who made that little cut was people like Wilma Mankiller. The next one is Ada Deer. And then, so I look at all the women I admired, that every one of them made a little cut to cut that buckskin ceiling just a little bit. And then when my turn came, I got to cut it even more to open it up, to allow women to go and run for higher office. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Thank you. So there are different levels of power in all systems. That community skill has the levels of power. United States Navy has levels of power, so nothing ever gets done here. You got to go here, you got to go here, you got to go here, and invariably it gets done. To understand those levels of power, so whenever you look at the United States Congress and the Senate, you introduce a bill, it has to go to the House first. And then it has all these committees, like the state legislature has all these committees. It's got to get past that committee and then go to the next committee. It goes all the way out. Okay. And so the work is about knowing every member of the committee, who they are, blah, 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 and start to educate them, et cetera. So it goes this way, and then, so it gets out of the House, it goes to the Senate. Then you have to also work the members of the committee So it takes a lot of work, knowledge, communication to get your idea from here to here to here to completion. So that's what communication is key. What do you think? Yeah, communication.
It's complex. It's not just reading and writing.
No, it is.
It's very complex too.
And relationship building, right? Kind of know how to build relationships in there. Yeah.
You build relationships, build like her whole story, build credibility, build relationships, and watch what you say and what you do.
One final maybe question, and it's to both of you. We know campaigning is hard. We know being in office is hard. We know it's tough. We know there are lots of uphill battles, but would either of you or would both of you share a moment of joy, a moment of a story that you will carry with pride? Yeah. Is there, something you got past or something you worked hard on? Maybe it didn't pass, but you made a new relationship. Because I think, sometimes we just think of stuff and it's so hard and how they do it. But there's got to be those moments of victory and those moments of pride for you that you'll look back on and say, but we did this. Yeah, it was hard, but this.
I'm glad you asked that question because in 2009 in Denver, Colorado, when we picked Obama to run for the president, I worked my way up doing voter registration, worked for Tim Johnson, learned the political system. I was able to get people to participate, community, to register voters, do voter education. One of the things I immediately recognized was so many of our own people did not know why they should vote. And the reason that, and so it kind of blew me away. I just assumed everybody knew that the United States government was responsible for our health, our education, our roads, our water. Not true.
Mm.
And then I realized we had a high school dropout rate. So a lot of our people never took civics class to understand how that system worked. A lot of people never read the Constitution of the United States, Article 6, that treated the supreme law of the land, and this government is responsible for food, clothing, shelter, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Wow, And so the assumption that I had that people know, and this is why you vote, to make sure people are in Congress or wherever are going to look out for your best interest, because we're the only people in the United States of color who are mentioned in the Constitution of the United States,
Yeah.
And so it kind of blew me away that a lot of our own people didn't understand why their vote counted. So Tom Shortbull asked me to do some training for the college centers. And this is my favorite story. And this was the second Obama, but I'll talk about the first Obama. So I became real active in the Bennett County Democratic Party. And with a bunch of Democrats, there's some actual white Democrats in Bennett County. And so I was helping them doing better voter registration, talking. Anyway, so I became I ended up being the chair of the Bennett County Democratic Party. Anyway, so I was chosen by the state party to represent Bennett County and Indians as a voting member to vote for Obama at the national convention. Wow, I got to go to this huge convention in Denver. Patsy Whitefoot, my friend from Washington State, her and I, she is involved in her state. So we said, okay, when we go to Denver, let's bring our Indian clothes. Let's put our Indian dresses on. And that night when Obama accepts the nomination. Okay, in the meantime, the South Dakota Democratic Party asked me to give the statement because state by state, they had to give a statement when Obama was nominated and he accepted. So I was working on my speech and I was just nervous. My heart was beating. Well, it got to New York. State by state, they had to vote. Okay, New York, all this Obama, yay. Hillary Clinton makes the motion to cease voting and give it to him by acclamation, which they could. Damn, I didn't get to make my speech over national television.
Dang it.
Dang, Hillary.
But you have to, if you're like that, of all the things that ever happened in my life, that night in Denver, when the powerful group of Democrats came together to nominate and have Obama run to represent us, was, to me, one of the most exciting moments of my life. So that night, me and Patsy put on our Indian dresses and we came to the big arena. And her and I were real famous. All the black guys wanted to take pictures with the two Indian girls. You know, I said, "Ooh, Patsy, we could get a new husband." You know. Okay, so that I had to share that with the audience, but I didn't get there overnight. I had to work hard, and most importantly, Obama did do really good in South Dakota. All 9 reservations, and Pine Ridge and Rosebud. The Indian vote was high. Why? Well, a lot of our own people don't realize when you go to the car clinic and you register, a provider sees you, you get a prescription. Who pays for that? Mhm. When your child gets picked up by the yellow school bus, who pays for the driver who put the gas in the car? When they get to the school, who provides the resources for their breakfast? When they go into the classroom, who buys the books? Who pays the light bill and who pays the teacher's salary? All of that fall under Article 6, that this government is responsible for doing that because we gave up all this stuff. And so I used that as a basis for training the 9 college centers and encouraged them to go home and go register. So this was the best part. In 2 weeks, we're going to come back together. So we gave them voter registration forms, sent them home. They registered over 500 voters. Wow. But they were not anybody. Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, or immediate family were not registered to vote. That opened up my eyes. So the students told them about health care as a federal obligation to get funded. Education. They were able to share the information I gave them. So your vote is important because whoever we get in Congress is going to look out for those, services that the treaty says we have to do. So anyway, that was the second Obama running for president. So let me just put it in a nutshell. What I walked away from was we're not doing a very good job educating our people on the power that they have. One vote, chaja oich beyapi, chaja ni traki, oich beyapi. Your vote can make a difference in many, many things. They didn't understand that power that they have. That one vote is powerful. And how do we convey that to our people, not just Indian people, but white people? Pick and choose people who are going to do the right thing to honor the language in these legislation, the language in these bills, the language of the Constitution, South Dakota Constitution, United States Constitution. Pick people who are going to follow what we call the rule of law. Is that the term they're using now? The rule of law is the language that's put in all of the documents, like the Constitution, huh? No. And so that, to me, my highlight was being there when Obama accepted the nomination. But let me conclude by saying that there were a lot of Indians from every state in that room. So as before the evening started, you know how Indians walk around the powwow ground? Hey, guess what? We were walking around there. Next thing we have 30 Indians in the middle of that convention center. Hey, come on. So we had Arizona, Alaska, all these Indians, Wyoming. And these are Indians who were able to become delegates at the term for the Democratic Party from their state, and who played a very important role in getting that vote out too, for Obama. And so that took a lot of work. And then, of course, the Indian vote did help. But the one Indian vote that I'm so proud of is when Tim Johnson beat Johnson 542 votes or something. And so Johnson was celebrating on the East River. In the meantime, the polls closed over here. So they took our votes up to Hot Springs to count him. And Tim Johnson beat Johnson by. And then those votes came from where?
Our count.
Pine Ridge
Yep.
and Rosebud. And so our vote that night put Tim Johnson over the edge. But here's the part. He repaid us. Tim Johnson became the chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee. What a powerful position he took. And as the chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, he was able to influence his members of that committee to continue to increase the funding for all of Indian country, healthcare, education. So he used the victory he got from Pine Ridge and Rosebud, the Indian vote, secured a position high in that committee, and he was able to influence his colleagues to keep increase the budget for Indian country. I use that as an example of how our votes could really influence somebody. And then not only did he do that, he was also communicated with members, and that was the thing I just admired about all of them, McGovern, Daschle, and Tim Johnson. They worked with both parties. They didn't just stay Democrat. They reached out to their colleagues across the aisle who were Republican on issues to garner their support and vote. That has not happened in the sense Tim Johnson and Tom Daschle and McGovern have been gone.
What about you, Peri? Do you have any joys?
Oh,
Yeah.
It's hard to compete, isn't it?
yeah. Should have went first.
I think, well, there's a piece of legislation that got passed, but when was it? A few years ago, I had authored the bill that passed the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Liaison Office under the Attorney General office. At the time, I don't know if I allowed myself to feel joy because I was just so focused on what's next. That bill passed, and it was the way it passed was more about strategy, really, and that office is still standing. There was a lot of misinformation about the funding of that in the media, but at the time, Governor Noem put that in her budget and said it would be funded as far as, foreseeable future. So that was a win. It was a win that I wasn't expecting. When I first got into office, I was told by a fellow Democrat who was in there for a while, and he or she, or, I'm not going to mention any names or allude to who this was, but this person was, in their mind, giving me advice. And they said, you are a woman, you are a Native woman, and you're a Democrat. And you need to manage your expectations of what you could get done here, because it's not very much. You're not going to be able to get anything done here. And I said, okay. And I just said, okay, and I moved on. And I didn't believe that for a second, because I know that I am there for a reason and a purpose. And I was like, I'm a legislator. What am I if I can't pass any legislation? And so when that bill passed, it was a way of saying something can be done. We can. It's really hard, and it's a lot of work. But there's one thing that happened recently that it brings me the most joy, is when the prison bill came up on the floor this past year. I had exited the Democratic caucus prior to the start of session. And there was a lot of naysayers saying, what are you doing? You're going to be by yourself or whatever. And I had asked the Speaker of the House, don't set me over there. I don't want to, because he sits all the Democrats together in like the back of the floor, the session. And that's where they always sit, is way back there in a corner. And there's only like 6, and this is on the House side. And when they were coming up with the seating chart, I called him and I said, don't set me over there. And he said, oh, okay. They said, you guys would brush it under the rug and act like nothing happened. And I said, no, I said, I don't care where you sit me, just don't sit me over there. And so I sat in the middle of the legislative floor. And there was comments like, oh, you're alone. I'm like, no, I know everybody around me. And I get along with everybody around me. And I looked at them like they were my relatives. Even though they probably they didn't have much interactions with natives. There's some very old legislators there that would tell you their first impression of Indians was in the AIM days in the 70s, 73, and that's their first impression. And there's some that would even tell you, I don't know much about Indians. All I know is they're on the reservation, and when they leave, trouble happens. Like, those are the things that are said. And these people are so comfortable with me to tell me these things. And so being able to be in a position where I worked really hard, where I could have influence, and they could look at me not as some Indian from the reservation that causes trouble. They look at me as I'm a mom. I'm a veteran. Yes, I'm a Native woman. Yes, I'm very proud, and I am from Pine Ridge. But there's so much more to me that I offer everyone that you can't discount me or throw me away. So the prison bill comes up to the floor, and there's a lot of talk, and all the Democrats want the prison because the prison isn't in good condition. But Senator Foster and I were under the belief that if we just let this fly by, no one's going to have a real conversation about criminal justice reform. We'll just kick it down the road and, do the South Dakota thing and sweep it under the rug and pretend it's not there. It came to the floor and I gave a speech. And I can't tell you, when I speak, I'm a praying person. I pray all the time. I pray constantly, every day before I speak, just tûká:si, give me the words to say. And I gave a speech, and you could see it on YouTube. I can't tell you exactly what I said, but it was a good speech. And every single person told me it was a good speech, but it's not the speech itself. It was my ability to change hearts and minds. It was the ability that gave me joy, was to be able to be in a position where I worked really hard on people getting to know me.
Yeah.
And I worked really hard at building relationships so that when they have a question about legislation, or when they have, I don't really know what to do, this area is not my expertise, this isn't my wheelhouse. Peri, what are you doing on this? What do you think about that? And when I open my mouth, they listen and they take it to heart. And that's my sense of joy, is when somebody repeats what I said. When you say exactly what I said to you 5 minutes behind that door, because I feel like I'm being effective. I'm doing what our people elected me, not just our people, but all of District 27 elected me to do, is to represent them and their voice. And that's when I feel like I'm effective.
Okay, Jen, what do you think?
I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay, well, Cecelia and Peri, Wópila tjanka to both of you for being with us today. Thank you for your leadership, your truth, and your willingness to share so openly. You both are a gift to us all.
Yep. And I think Peri, you're in line. I mean, you're up there now, cutting that buckskin roof even more.
Yes.
There's somebody in our future who's going to run because of the work you've done and are doing,
Thank you.
right? And Cecelia, yeah, I mean, there's so many people who have benefited from your advocacy. I think of all the work that you have done to get people elected, so maybe not out front until your time as tribal president. So all of those things to push the betterment and for the wellness of our people again, you'll never know that work. You'll never know the benefits of that work or how far reaching that was. You see the passing of the legislation, you see the work in tribal council, you see that part, but there are people for generations that will be affected by the work that you've done, and that's really powerful. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And that's what the Stories of Lakota Elders is all about. Honoring that power and remembering that our elders hold knowledge that can guide us through even the most difficult times.
And we are in some difficult times. So Wópila tjūáŋka for listening to Stories of Lakota Elders. Until next time, please take care, lead with compassion, and in the words of Peri's mom, never forget where you come from.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Yeah.
What a powerful conversation. Hearing Cecelia reflect on her journey as the first woman elected president of the Oglala Sioux Tribe reminds us how much courage it takes to step into leadership, especially in spaces that haven't always welcomed women.
And having Representative Peri Pourier join us added such an important layer. Her reflections, especially now, knowing the political shift she would make just weeks later, show how complex, personal, and evolving political identity can be for Native people navigating state and tribal systems.
In this episode, we witnessed 2 generations of Lakota women in political life, each carrying their own experiences, challenges, and strengths, yet both grounded in their commitment to serving our people.
As you reflect on what you've heard, we invite you to think about the leaders in your own community, the young people watching, and the spaces we're all responsible for shaping. Cecilia's story reminds us that breaking a barrier isn't the end of the work, it's the beginning.
Wópila to Cecelia Fire Thunder for sharing her voice and her wisdom, and to Representative Peri Pourier for joining this important discussion.
And Wópila to all of you for listening. Be sure to join us next time as we continue this journey through the life and stories of Cecelia Fire Thunder.
Until then, remember to create space for learning, for listening, and for lifting up the next generation of Lakota leaders.
Doksha Ake. Stories of Lakota Elders is an independent podcast recorded at Makpialuta Studios on the Makpialuta campus in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. This project is supported in part by the Better Way Foundation, with studio support from South Dakota Public Broadcasting, and editing, sound design, and production support from our friends at Podtex. You can listen to Stories of Lakota Elders wherever you get your podcasts.